I just so we won't bark too much.
Hey, welcome, folks. Welcome, folks. Another edition of Boxing Chit. You know who it is? It's Joshua here, along with Boz, representing. We're here to talk boxing, of course. That's what we do mainly. But there's a lot of other stuff going on in the world. But I know you're here for boxing, all that good stuff. How you been, Boz?
Yeah, pretty good. I've had some furniture to put together this weekend, so it's been pretty, uh, very extraordinarily tiresome weekend.
Yeah, certainly understand. Certainly understand with that. And today's episode brought to you by Flame on Earth. No, just kidding, but representing for the Flame on Earth, of course. But yeah, that's good stuff, man. I know how that can be. I've been doing some cleaning up and stuff around here. Been getting rid of a lot of the old stuff and out with the old, in with the new. It kind of spring cleaning
Yeah,
is what they say, but this is fall cleaning, I guess you can say.
right. Full cleaning.
A little bit of that,
Yeah.
but yeah, cool, man. Happy you can join us, or happy you can join. Happy everyone listening can join us.
Hmm.
We appreciate you being here. Again, we're here to talk some boxing. Check out the podcast, all that good stuff, and be sure you see the little dials there in and around the screen. Be sure to check out Boxing Haven. Check out 86 Boxing. We appreciate it. And shout out to Brown Gal Peace Lounge, rather. She says, "Hey there, happy Sunday to you, Brown Gal Peace Lounge. We appreciate you dropping in. Thank you, my friend. Hey, I love what you have going over there on the page. Hey, people, if you're into serenity, peace, all that good stuff, that calming nature, meditation, be sure to check out Brown Gal Peace Lounge. She's doing her thing over there on her page. You see her right there. You can just go in and subscribe. I think it'll be very, very much worthwhile. And we do appreciate you dropping in here today, Brown Gal Peace Lounge. So check her out. But yeah, so we're here to talk some boxing, as mentioned. We had some action this past weekend, and it was not too bad. We had Sebastian Fundora, who was headlining things as he was taking on Carlos Ocampo. And if you're familiar with Carlos Ocampo, it may be because you probably know him from taking on Errol Spence a few years back, where he was stopped in, I guess it was about a round. So you didn't
Yeah.
really get to see much of him. But since that time, he has run up a couple of victories, or he had run up a couple of victories prior to this particular fight. And he was doing some fights in Mexico, all that good stuff. And if you know Sebastian Fundora, then you know that he's one of those individuals who is a unicorn in some sense in the sport of boxing, being 6'6" or just under, and fighting in the 154-pound division. So when you
Yeah.
see him on the screen, it looks crazy because you're talking about a guy who's the size, or at least the height, of the big heavyweights out there, the Anthony Joshuas and such, and he weighs 154 pounds. It just looks different
Yeah.
visually when you're watching him there in the sport of boxing, even though probably in some other sports it doesn't look as weird. Like if he was a basketball player or whatever, it's just there
Yeah.
a bit skinnier. It just looks funny in a boxing ring. But he is one of those fighters who, despite his size and his length, which is pretty much longer, taller than everyone in the division, as far as I could tell, he doesn't fight like that. He doesn't fight on the outside. Actually, his strong suit is fighting on the inside. So that's where he spends the bulk of his time, and that's where he's at his best. As weird as it may be, you'll see it if you've seen him, and if you haven't, I would say check him out, because as weird as it may be, he is one of those fighters who thrives on the inside, even with those long limbs and everything. So he took on Carlos Ocampo, who, as mentioned, probably a lot of people didn't know about, but this turned out to be a pretty solid fight. We had a lot of back and forth, and as a matter of fact, I was watching it along with a group on Twitter, and Carlos Ocampo actually ran up a few rounds. Probably the first four rounds you could bank in for Carlos Ocampo, because he was doing a bit better. He was working from the mid range, actually, landing a lot of good stuff, and he ultimately ended up kind of drawing back from that and getting caught on the inside, which, from my understanding, some others have mentioned that that's more of his game, working from the inside. And of course, that is one of the strong suits of Fundora. So it made it for an action packed fight. And ultimately, it ended up going to the cards with some scores a bit wider than what it probably should have been. And we know how it is with boxing judging at times. So uh, we're probably not surprised about the fact that some of these cards were off. One of them was like 119, one of them was 118, and then the other was 117, 111, or whatever. So, but basically, Ocampo, he certainly won more rounds than what these judges were giving him credit for. It could have been a draw in all actuality, from my perspective. I wasn't scoring it, but just watching it, it was that type of back and forth and that sort of close-knit action that could make for being a draw. And it leaves a lot of interesting questions moving forward as well, because I think that Ocampo, he put a stamp on himself being able to be back in the spotlight once again. Hopefully we see him back in there again. He seems to have more to the eye than what we may have thought in that, based on that Errol Spence fight. But Sebastian Fundora, he's on a winning streak, and of course, that leads to the potential of what's next. And the name that's been thrown out, or name that has been thrown out there, of course, is no doubt Jermell Charlo, who is the man there at 154 pounds, and he takes on Tim Tszyu here later this year at some point, maybe sooner than later. So taking that into account, what do you think, Boz, just surrounding all of that with Fundora going the distance with Ocampo? I think a lot of people probably thought he would take Ocampo out. I was one of them, but hey, he didn't have the worst showing, but certainly it was a showing that kind of brought him back down to earth in a sense.
Yeah, I thought, I kind of caught some of the footage before that fight from that same card. And there were two females fighting, but he was shown sitting there, Fundora, ringside, and he looked very relaxed. I thought, even too relaxed.
Yeah, he has a sister who fights as well. She just went to 9-0, and she actually is tall for the division she's in at 5'9", and she throws a lot of punches like him. So it's interesting seeing it. It's kind of like a little clone.
Yeah. So yeah, every fighter has sometimes an off night, as they call it, I guess, and maybe simply Ocampo's style was not so well suited for Fundora. There are always, you got great fighters who have struggled against a non-great fighter before also. For instance, I remember well when Nonito Donaire, he fought a guy called what was his name? I think his name was Rafael Concepcion or something like that.
Yeah, Rafael Concepcion.
So he was a guy from Panama or somewhere like that. Yeah, like a tough, like a very.
Yeah, I remember his brother Luis Concepcion. Yeah, I think.
Like a pressure fighter, and I don't know, Donaire really kind of struggled. I mean, he didn't impress at all in that fight, because before that he had just destroyed most other guys. He had fought almost everybody, including Vic Darchinyan, and some other really, really good fighters. But that guy really made him fight for his life, and it happens sometimes. So, but we'll see. I hope this will not persist. I mean, this was just one odd night for Fundora. I hope it will not prove to be that he is overrated, because I don't think he is.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I was hearing, and a lot of people do feel that he's a bit overrated and not very skilled, which I guess I can understand that from the fact that he doesn't box in a skilled manner with respect to his size or whatever, but he very much is a brawler almost in some sense, and he's one of those tough guys. He has a chin on him. I will give him that, because he was taking some big shots and he was pretty much eating them. And I know that was a similar case in terms of when he fought Lubin in his previous fight.
Yeah,
he did go down. He got dropped. That was the first time he had been hurt, as far as I recall. But he's known to take some shots, and so he has a good chin. But and that was the case last night. But
yeah. I actually before that Lubin fight, I actually had I thought that Lubin would win. I mean, I had kind of predicted him to win that fight because
Yeah,
he had been looking good before that, and I
yeah,
just didn't know Fundora that well. Simply, I know him better now. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I had yeah, I thought Lubin had, been redeemed, and I thought it was gonna make it tough and probably
yeah,
be able to, I just knew it was gonna be a very interesting fight, and I thought it would be a good fight. Turned out it was, and I did think that Lubin was probably gonna have an edge, and Fedora
yeah,
pulled it out. But yeah, for all his faults, so like there are definitely those. I think Fedora can certainly be outboxed, but what I think is going to take is someone who is able to withstand 12
yeah,
rounds of him coming back with his shots, which are they have a little bit more pop to him than what may meet the eye because he's able to damage some of these guys, and
oh yeah,
he has gotten
definitely,
some later stoppages as well, a la what
yeah.
happened with Lubin, and he had his face really busted.
Yeah, I would like to say it was probably kind of like Margarito, when it comes to that power. It's not like he can knock you out with one punch, but he does, when he hits you with enough punches, you are damaged, definitely. You get stopped. Yeah,
Yeah, certainly. Now, some people think that because of the fact that he takes a lot of punishment, that he's going to be folded and essentially handled easily by Jermell Charlo. Now, I think that Charlo can certainly beat him. I don't think it'll be easy because of the fact
yeah,
that I think that Fundora it just makes it tough and interesting for anyone, and of course, Styles makes fights. So a brawler who kind of wants to trade on the inside, like Ocampo did in this fight, that maybe was sort of an antithesis for
yeah.
Fundora. And
But
then a guy like Charlo who boxes and he's very polished and he does throw some big shots. I think, yeah, that could be tough for Fundora. By the same token, I think that Fundora would keep coming and he would be on the front foot and he would force Charlo to box a good game as well. And we've seen him
mm,
do that at times, but he would have to be on it, I think, for the entirety of the fight.
yeah, and Charlotte has never really fought anybody close to that height, of
Yeah,
Fedora. I don't think. I think maybe Tony Harrison is the tallest guy he fought, something around.
probably.
Yeah, 6'1". So, and he's like 4.5 inches shorter than Fundora. So
Yeah.
that's gonna be pretty interesting. But of course, it doesn't mean. Yeah, I think right now and after this fight, if you judge Fundora on this fight, yeah, then I would probably back. I mean, I think that I would. How do you say? I forgot. Favor Charlotte to win, but I think Fedora will fight pretty differently when that fight happens.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it happens soon enough. I think
Yeah.
he will just because he has to. He knows what he has to do to win. So
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully it does happen sooner than later. But another thing that transpired was the guy you had mentioned leading up to this. You were speaking on, or at least we were chatting about him. We may have spoke on it in the last podcast. Was Carlos Adames returning to
yeah.
action?
Oh yeah. Right.
Um, and I keep mixing it up for as a matter of fact, and I was about to do it then. Carlos Adames, I believe, is fighting at 160 as
Yeah,
opposed to
he's
154.
he's
I keep
the Dominican fighter.
Yes. I keep mixing the wrong brothers because I think I'm like, oh, he can be an opponent for Charlo, but he can, but it actually would be Jamal Charlo. But
All right.
Carlos Adames, he fought last night. He was able to get a third round stoppage over
Wow.
Montiel, who has been in with Charlo, who has been in with some other pretty solid opponents. And
All right.
Carlos Adames
Definitely.
was able to stop him in the third round with a few hard shots that forced the referee to jump in there, and Montiel's face had been damaged up to that point, and Adames was able to land some big stuff. And I think that Adames is pretty solid. I know you gave him pretty high praises, and I've seen him a number of times, and I think that I thought he was an okay fighter, but I do think that he seems to still be growing in some sense, and he's on his game. And I think he's probably better than what it may seem, and he has a tutelage behind him. Of course, we know there have been a number of pretty skilled Dominican fighters over the years who've been able to make a mainstay in the sport, sort of like that sort of like the Cuban fighters. They come in skilled and pretty much primed and ready to go in that sense. And he looked good in this one, and he kind of saw an opportunity to blast through Montiel, and that's the route he took. And the referee stepped in, and he has made himself the mandatory for the WBC. And I believe that is actually held by Jamal Charlo. So there's a potential for seeing that fight. And, Charlo had been out since he got injured leading up to the fight with Zaleski. I believe that's his name. I want to say he's Polish or Croatian. Polish. So they were supposed to fight at some point earlier this year, but that got postponed. So maybe now what goes into what kind of is thrown into the fray is the potential for Jamal Charlo versus Carlos Adames, which I think would be a pretty solid fight overall.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty impressive that Adames was able to stop this guy Montiel so fast, also. But yeah, I mean, most of his wins are by KO. Actually, if you look at his record, so
yeah,
17 or 22. So yeah, I would like to see that fight because Adames seems to have learned a lot from that loss to Teixeira.
Yes.
Yeah, and as I said, it seems like it was a pretty close fight, but he got dropped. So that was one of the reasons he lost. So
yeah, and that's not a bad loss from an overall perspective because sometimes boxers, they have that fight, that moment that turns out to be their best. So that I think that Patrick Teixeira, he was pretty much on point and on his game on that night, and he was not to be denied.
Yeah, no, what was funny? Before that fight, I was watching the broadcast as it had just begun. Before this fight, and somebody, I think that must have been a fan of Montiel. He wrote that Adames is gonna get a beating. So the opposite of that happened. Actually.
Yeah, the opposite for sure. Montiel, he takes too many shots, and Adames was able to take advantage of that. And with Adames, besides that Patrick Teixeira fight, he did beat Sergey Derevianchenko. So when you look at his resume as far as those common opponents, Jamal Charlo also beat Sergey Derevianchenko. He did a little bit more damage on Derevianchenko than Adames did, but Adames was able to stop Montiel here, and I believe he went the distance with Jamal Charlo. So that, of course, fight by fight basis, you never know what can happen. But that does make it interesting now that they have these common opponents.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, Derevianchenko has been, against some really tough guys. I mean, some of the best already, and he hasn't had so many fights. He's like what's his record? Let's see.
Probably like 11 or something, like 11 or 12 maybe.
14-4. No, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, he has a few more. He just brought in a few more. Yeah, he came up. And he's actually. He came up. Kind of fast, of course, along with a lot of the other Ukrainian stars at the time who kind of came in or around the same time. Thinking about him, Lomachenko, the Nail, Gvozdyk, just thinking about those guys. I actually got to see him when he fought out here. There was practically a Ukrainian show out here in DC, and it was headlined by Lomachenko, sorry. But so I actually got to see him live, and you could tell he was pretty solid. All those guys, Loma was there, Usyk, and it turned out to be a pretty solid card from an overall standpoint. And I really did enjoyed that one. It was back in like 2016 or 17, somewhere in there, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm looking at his record now, actually trying to find that, and maybe I could be off. Maybe he wasn't there actually. Now that I think about it, I think it was only Lomachenko and Usyk and Gvozdyk, rather. So it looks like
Yeah.
Lomachenko wasn't there. That I thought he was. So I haven't seen him actually.
Yeah.
But seeing Loma and Usyk live along with Gvozdyk was pretty dope.
Yeah. Wozniak is now also on his comeback trail. I don't know if he's had a fight yet, but he will probably soon. Yeah. I thought,
Yeah. I remember us talking about that a little while back. That is pretty interesting.
yeah, he hasn't had one actually yet, so he better hurry up. It's been 3 years. Well,
Mm.
so I thought, of all the guys that Beterbiev has beaten, I thought he gave him the best fight, probably the closest one. Was it
Oh, okay.
Beterbiev? Even though,
Yeah. I agree.
yeah, there was one guy that lasted to the 12th round, but that was doesn't mean much because he was dominating otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he did, and I think Gavoza, hey, no shame in that. I think you're right. He did give Beterbiev probably the best fight thus far out of anyone, and he didn't look
Yeah.
too bad in that. He kind of took some punishment there on the tail end and couldn't recover from that. But it's not like he was stopped brutally or anything of that nature. So
Mm.
maybe this sort of time off has helped him in some sense and kind of given him that re-spark, I guess you could say, or at least hopefully that will have been the case.
Yeah.
But of course, time will tell.
Maybe he could also perhaps I can see him going up to cruiserweight because he's a rather
Mhm.
big light heavyweight, 6'2". And,
Yeah. Yeah, in the cruiserweight division, hey, we still have some pretty solid guys up top, but there's very much room to kind of jump in there and kind of make a name, given that some of the guys who have been mainstays there are sort of on the back end in a sense, even though they
yeah.
still look good. So it will make for some interesting fights as well.
Oh yeah, definitely there are some good fights to be made at cruiserweight still there. It's not completely dead now because Usyk
Yeah.
left them.
Yeah, I would like to see a rematch between Opataya and Breedis.
Yeah.
I think that was a good one. I think that first fight was pretty much close. I thought it was close. I thought it was a close fight, and
Yeah.
you could see
Yeah.
Opataya winning, but I don't think Breedis was necessarily just out of it. He had an argument in some sense, but I think it was
He's
just a very close fight.
he's just a very talented boxer. He's
Yeah.
as I said, the only guy that really gave Usyk so far, a really hard fight. I mean, as I
Oh yeah.
said, I kind of had him winning actually that fight.
Oh yeah. The others did. The others did as well. So yeah, you're not in a minority there.
Yeah, so he's very talented, of course. And in Latvia has never had. I mean, all the boxers I know of before, there were a few also but they were really like garbage. Actually, all the others, they were just tomato cans. And this guy suddenly comes. And he's not Russian actually. He's from Latvia. He's a Latvian. So
Yeah.
he's so good. You can't believe it. How can he be so good? Like, and be from such a non-boxing nation.
Yeah, that is true. You have some sort of gems that'll step out there, and
Yeah.
they're able to stand out, make a name for themselves,
Hmm.
and that is pretty cool. I was looking back. I remember scoring that Opataya Breedis card, but I guess it might not have been via Fight Scores. Oh yeah, check out
Yeah.
fight.score.com, Fight Night Scores. Yeah. So I was looking to try and see what I had it, but I know I had it close in
Hmm.
that regard because it was a pretty back and forth fight, and he had some pretty solid moments.
Now this is pretty interesting. I see now box track they had also Apataya at number one, but now it's Okoli. Well, why is that? I don't know.
Mm.
They just changed their mind and downgraded Opetaya.
Oh yeah, Lawrence Okoli. So
Yeah,
that's probably the fight that they kind of view as being the next big fight at cruiserweight, and of course, I think it
yeah,
would be a good fight. I did want to see a Coley against one of these other top cruiserweights first, but
And I
they,
still, yeah, Cole is still 29, so that's good. He's still in his prime. I thought he was actually older because I read that he got into boxing like to lose weight,
oh
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
So he was very overweight
yeah,
before.
it happens for that. Sometimes it happens. The guys are overweight, then they get down and they turn out to be pretty dang solid.
Yeah,
Benavidez was apparently a big guy, overweight or something like that, if I'm
yeah,
not mistaken, and
and
he had to drop
also
a lot of weight.
Joe Macy, remember him? Joe Macy, Baby Joe.
Maybe
He
Joe
was
Macy.
also very. He was like a heavyweight in the early 2000s, But then
Hmm.
he got a brain injury and he had to stop, and then he came back, but it wasn't the same again, So
Oh yeah, that's tough right there. Coming back
yeah.
from something like that.
So, but he retired at 36 and 0. He retired undefeated actually.
Mm.
That's quite a
Oh, interesting,
consolation. Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I have to. Yeah, I don't recall him, but
Yeah, he knocked out that guy, Devarl Williamson, in one round, actually.
mm,
Devarl, and also a few other
wow.
guys, David Eisen and who else? I think he had a really close fight with Monty
Barrett.
Barrett. Yeah,
Okay,
that was a good fight.
I remember Monty. He's a big guy.
Yeah. So like
Okay,
he won by majority decision there.
I have
Based.
to look into it. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
unfortunate when you get the brain injury or something of that nature. I know it becomes
yeah.
tough to get licensed.
Yeah, it was like a subdural hematoma, I think.
Yeah, no joke right there. No joke.
Yeah.
And that can have lasting effects.
It was against when he fought Giro, that guy,
Mm.
Vasily. When he moved up to heavy, he was a
Zero.
really tough guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, some of these guys, yeah, they can take a lot of shots and all that stuff, but that doesn't mean necessarily damage isn't being done. They just have pretty
Oh,
solid
yeah.
chin.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't get how, man, that guy, Evander Holyfield, this must be made of a
Yeah.
meteorite or something. He is still talking like almost normal. He can talk. He doesn't
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
blur.
You're
You know?
right, because he was not some huge heavyweight. He
Yeah,
was very solidly built, muscular, but he wasn't like a huge guy, of course.
yeah.
And
I mean, standing next to Riddick Bowe, he looks small, right? He was
yeah,
small.
yeah, you're right. And he would take some shots. He took a hell of some, some huge shots that the two of them exchanged, and I think that probably
Yeah,
took something out of both of them, especially Riddick Bowe. Between
that's
that and the Galata fights
yeah.
with Bowe.
Especially the first two fights, because the third one ended in round 8, so was that
Yeah,
was also pretty brutal because Bo was knocked down for the first time in his career. That was like a left hook, I believe, Holyfield landed like really.
yeah, and Bowe, yeah, you can definitely tell that he doesn't sound the same. But for
Yeah,
Evander Holyfield, yeah, he still, for the most part, sounds like he did in terms of the way he speaks. But Bowe, he definitely slurs his speech, and I think it was from some of that damage taken in some of those wars.
oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
Even with him being one of the bigger heavyweights.
Mm. Yeah, that's what's funny. He's also younger than Holyfield and all that, and really a big heavyweight. But he really took a lot of damage from those wars, and you could see it in a lot of fights. Of course, he just wasn't the same guy anymore.
Yeah, and you know, maybe him fighting Lennox Lewis would have made it worse because I think
Yeah.
that Lewis would have beat him. But
Oh yeah, at least then, yeah,
yeah,
definitely '96 or something they fought. Yeah,
at that particular time. But yeah, it would have
but
been a good fight though. I think
yeah,
regardless.
but that fight should have happened in '93, So, but they didn't, of course.
Yeah, a few of those fights between the likes of them should have happened then. Maybe we could have even saw Bowe Tyson, or even though Tyson, you
Oh
know, having
yeah,
his issues and all that stuff. A lot of good combinations of fights that we missed out on
yeah,
at that
and like
particular time.
Foreman versus Tyson or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Come on, imagine that. That would be so epic, man.
Yeah, even at that particular time, like a lot of heavy blows would have been exchanged.
Yeah, I could just see Foreman just clubbing, from the above, and
Mhm.
Tyson just, hooking him and throwing with.
Yeah, it's pretty miraculous that Foreman was able to do what he was able to do in terms of coming back from being
Yeah,
practically 10 years out and then even picking up a title, even though you know it's the multi-belt era. But the fact that he is at 45 able to actually secure one of those titles shows that yeah, he's pretty solid. And I mean, he was scary when he was younger. It wasn't as scary when he came back, but he still had that power and all that stuff, and kind of transformed himself. And I
yeah.
think that time off certainly kind of helped him change as far as his headspace and kind of get him a bit more focused. So he's an
hmm
interesting fighter, you know, very much.
Yeah, yeah, he was simply very, I mean, he was not human. He was superhuman, just like Holyfield,
Yeah, I love looking at his knockout reels. If you look at some of those knockouts, he was like nearly decapitating some of those guys. It was like crazy. He's just a mean fighter
Yeah,
when he was younger. This was pre first
yeah,
retirement, man. That
just,
version of George Foreman
mm,
was just an intimidating, just like
yeah,
beast right there.
those punches, they did such damage that was scary to watch. Just to watch, him take apart those guys, like boom, boom.
Yeah, like what he did to Ken Norton, just like
Yeah,
man. And Ken
just
Norton's a big guy.
yeah, like Hercules, they were like calling him stuff like that, but he just was taken apart like a toy. Oh,
Yeah.
Brown Gal also says now something new. Lennox.
Oh, shout out Brown Gal Peace Lounge. Lennox Lewis is one of my faves. Oh yeah, I remember you mentioned that in the comment before on a little Lennox Lewis piece. All right, that's what's up right there. A top 10 heavyweight all time for sure. Lennox was a beast out there. Lennox the
Yeah,
Lion Lewis.
yeah, he had to wait for a while to fight all the big guys, and
Yep.
he deserves respect for that, definitely. I mean, he was never really one of my favorites, but after now, when I look back at it, he really did have a great career, of course,
Yeah.
So yeah, he
Yeah.
was pretty entertaining too, Or,
Yeah, and he kind of transformed his style. That's why he was able to last longer than some of
yeah,
those other guys because of the fact that when he was younger, when he first jumped into the game, because him and Tyson, they kind of ran parallel in some sense, but Lennox Lewis turned pro late. But when Lewis first turned pro and early on there through the early 90s, he was this very quick boxer. You know, he still worked from the outside and all that stuff, but he was very speedy, you know, and he
yeah,
had a little pop to him as well. And I think that made him a tough matchup given his size. And then as he got older, I think that he refined his game and he just kept getting better and he slowed down a bit, but he was still very effective. You could say even more so in some sense. And
yeah,
he was able to do some damage to these guys who essentially should have still been kind of at that same level with him. But no, Lennox
yeah.
Lewis just made that jump and became the guy, the top heavyweight for sure.
It's a pity he wouldn't fight John Reese. I'm kind of curious to how that fight would have, played out. Would he been able to knock him out? Because Ruiz was pretty tough, strong
It
guy.
might have been boring. That's one thing. One
Yeah,
option.
that's right. Because only David Tua, I believe, really knocked out Ruiz. He was started by Hay, but that was
Brutal.
like a corner stuff.
Yeah, that was a brutal knockout right there.
Yeah, it just took his head off.
Ruiz, he's a good guy. I interviewed him once when I was on this other site or whatever.
John
He's a
Ruiz,
good guy. The
yeah,
quiet man.
yeah, he beat Holyfield. That's
Brown Gal Peace Lounge still here with us. Hey, we appreciate it. Says Prince Nassim Ahmed was the greatest showman. Hey, he was certainly
yeah.
that. I mean, in the fullest form, without a doubt. They
Nassim,
thrived off of it.
yeah, Mr. Nassim. He was like, yeah, and he had punching power. That was no joke. He was really,
Yeah, he was unconventional in the sense that he would hold his hands down and he would play around in there and all that stuff, but he had the power to bail him out any situation he was in for the most part, other than the Barrera fight. But he certainly was a showman in the greatest sense of it, and he brought that from the UK over here to the US, and he very much was one of those guys who was able to make a name for himself, not just for what he was able to do in the ring, but what he was able to do outside of his post-fight interviews and all that stuff were very
yeah.
funny. I always enjoyed that because he would say some crazy stuff. And then
Same
the
like,
Klitschko brothers were my favorite of all time, but Tyson is definitely in my top three. All right, good to go, good to go. So yeah, you like so Brown Girl Peace Lounge? Are you from over in the UK or something? You're from the UK, but yeah, the Klitschko's, hey, they were tough. I think they're tough for anyone, just given their size and skill. Two big, skilled fighters. I mean,
yeah,
and that's why they were able to dominate in what is considered relatively a weaker area of heavyweights. But they went against who was put in front of them, and most oftentimes than not, they were fairly dominant. Except for in the case of Vitaly, he suffered some injuries and things of that nature. Glad he could be unfocused and get caught and dropped. So Vitaly had a stronger chin, of course, but
yeah.
Vladimir Klitschko, of course, I think is more higher rated when you look at the totality of his career and what he was able to do with those
Yeah, it
20
was.
something title defenses, right?
Yeah,
Near Joe
He was very awkward with his style, very like old-fashioned kind of stance, kind of like Primo Carnera or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, but Vladimir was, just had a more kind of modern, developed style, and was simply, I guess, technically better, even though, and he could hit harder also than Vitaly. But Vitaly really just, went out there to, slug it out to fight. Really, I mean, he didn't hold anything back.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, certainly. So yeah, they were some tough cookies. Brown Gal Peace Lounge says she's in Brooklyn. Shout out Brooklyn, New York. Okay, good stuff then. Yeah, you just have your favorite fighters. But yeah, hey, I'm with that. Boxing is
yeah,
a global sport, so yeah, you have stars all over and some guys who are great who've been able to lace them up from varying spots. So yeah, those are some good guys you mentioned. Of course, Mike Tyson is my personal favorite as far as the heavyweights are concerned, and he was certainly. I mean, it goes without saying when you think about Iron Mike and what he meant for the sport at the time that he came into the game and what he was able to
yeah,
do. I mean, that's you only get that
yeah.
once a generation type of situation right there. You had it with the likes of Jack Dempsey, Ali, even though right there
Yeah,
in the beginning he wasn't very much liked, but he became one of these once in a generation stars, mega stars globally. And then you have guys like you have Tyson, who's able to do something of a similar nature. And yeah, he's one of those guys who, yeah, his name speaks volumes in the sport. When you think about 80s, 90s heavyweights, Tyson's name is probably the first that comes up without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually what first got me interested in boxing because I was 10 years old when I watched that fight with Spinks, and I was like, wow, like holy shit, this guy is really mean, he can really punch, he knocked him out just like that, a guy that obviously was a world class fighter, Spinks.
Destruction.
Yeah, but that was such a non-fight,
Yeah.
But, even some people before the fight they were like going, "Oh, Michael Spinks will win."
Yeah, it's
I
about
remember,
90 seconds or
yeah,
somewhere
Billy
around here.
Crystal said he would win in 10 rounds, something like that.
I was looking back, I joined Random Acoustic Thoughts, his page, and they were doing a top five greatest fights. I included that on there. We really had no set criteria or anything, but I included that fight. And I remember looking, you had a lot of the pros who were thinking that Tyson or that Michael Spinks was gonna get the victory over Tyson. They thought he was going to be a little too skilled for Tyson.
Yeah,
There are varying pros who felt that at the time.
yeah, that's right. I mean, yeah, he was very fast and skilled, but just that wasn't enough. He was never really a heavyweight, so that's
Yeah,
the problem.
he came from light heavyweight, right? So
Yeah, he should have gone back, or maybe went to cruiserweight, but he didn't want to do that. So.
yeah, yeah, that would have been a certainly a challenge there, regardless at that heavyweight level, even outside of Tyson. When you think about it beyond,
Yeah,
of course, the Larry Holmes fights, those are the ones that kind of solidified him. But yeah,
Larry Holmes fight is pretty. Yeah,
yeah. So shout out to Rodolfo Rivera Jr. Says what up, y'all? Hey,
hey,
appreciate you dropping in, Rodolfo. Been a minute. Glad to have you in here, buddy.
well up, man.
Rodolfo says it's Wilder fight week. Wilder fighting next week. So yes, sir, he is. As a matter of fact, taking that into account, Boz, what are your thoughts? He is right. We do have Wilder taking on Robert Helenius, the Nordic warrior, the Nordic nightmare. And shout out to my buddy Tommy Silvanonen, who's also a part of that team, Nordic, holding it down for Finland over there. Finland is a fighting country.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting fight. I wonder, if how Hellenius will perform because, but I know that he will do his best, of course, and
Yeah.
he will not just be throwing himself, he will not be quitting, too easily. So I don't know if he has any chances to win. I guess there is a slight chance, but still, I mean, most of us do think that Wilder will win that fight, and because he has to simply to keep on fighting to get back, on track and get
Yeah.
his career back, also on track. So yeah, I mean, probably I don't know really. I'd rather not do a prediction right now, but. I think it will at least probably go like eight rounds or something.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I do think Kalinius gets stopped at some point, but yeah, I can see that going a little bit further. Kalinius is a big guy. I
Yeah,
mean, it'll be interesting to see if they get drawn into an early back and forth. I think that could sort of end things a bit early for one of them, more likely Helenius. But that being said, Helenius has been in there with some top guys as well. And Wilder, his last three fights have pretty much been Tyson Fury. So that
yeah,
makes it a well. Did he fight anyone in between that? Maybe Luis Ortiz or something like that. But primarily Tyson Fury is who's been on his mind and radar. So this is
yeah,
a move from that, at least for the time being. And Rodolfo mentions hopefully he comes in lighter this time around. Yeah, that'll be interesting for sure. because he did bulk up a bit more for this last Fury fight. I think it did give him a bit more size. It didn't seem to help him overall as far as with his conditioning. He kind of seemed pretty gashed there towards the middle. And Fury, of course, came in heavy as he typically does, and I think that was going to be a problem for him regardless. And but yeah, it is interesting. Helenius is a big guy as well, but Helenius doesn't have the chin that I would say Fury does, or at least what we've seen from Fury thus far.
I don't think he's been knocked out by Helenius, or has he been? I don't know. But
I thought he was knocked out by Gerald Washington. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh yeah, that's right. Like that was in the 8th round. That's right. Well, I mean, that was kind of surprise. Yeah, I didn't expect that, but I hear that he was winning before that, until that happened. You know, so
yeah, he lost to Dupas.
Oh yeah,
whatever his name,
yeah, something Duhopas, something. Like
yeah, they were able to stop him, but it could have been a mix of kind of some fatigue as well thrown in there. Of course, that always makes things interesting. And Rodolfo says he's a fan of Helenius, but he's gonna have to go with Wilder for this one. Helenius is a decent name, to be honest, even if he's not in the top 10. Yeah, I think those Helenius fights with Kanowski actually kind of gave him a bit more boost as far as his career is concerned. I think that helped him because they were kind of building up Kanowski as one of those guys who could potentially fight for the title, even though he was very much flawed from the beginning. And I think that they probably thought he would get past Helenius. Didn't quite work out that way. And now Helenius is in that spot that Kanowski probably would have been in had he got those victories over Helenius, had he got the victories over Helenius. So now we get to see that, which I think this is probably it's a bit more of an interesting fight. I always felt that Kanowski was a bit too wide open defensively to be able to last against any of the top heavyweights in general, let alone with Wilder. So Helenius might be the better bet given his size and everything and his experience in comparison to Kanowski.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he would have just been too short for Wilder.
Yeah, it would have been tough. Brown Gal, Peace Lounge. Tyson was definitely the best pound for pound, but I love how the Klitschko brothers was often rated the underdogs in matchups, but always gave their all in the ring. Without a doubt, they did do that, and you got to commend them for such. And at the time, they were pretty much knocking off all of the top American heavyweights as they were being lined up. Line them up, knock them down. Line them up, knock them down. So Vladimir Klitschko, I think he would have been the undisputed heavyweight champion in the sense of if Vitaly, hadn't had one of the belts. Of course, they weren't going to fight each other.
Yeah.
But that aside, he was virtually the undisputed champion at the time. I don't think that anyone at the time of his reign, at the peak of his reign, would have defeated him. And, you had Wilder and such come on there at the tail end, but I think that earlier in their careers, I don't think Wilder would have been able to beat Vladimir Klitschko because he's a little bit too skilled and polished for Wilder. And I don't know that Wilder had developed at that particular time, even though he had a ton of knockouts, but he hadn't really fought anyone. So I think it was just I think Vlad would have dominated or been the guy for sure. And I'm with you there, Brown Gal Peace Line. Tyson is my favorite, but the GOAT, of course, is Muhammad Ali. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Of course.
Shout out to Fighting Highlights.
hard to kind of argue that, of course. Yeah, I mean, you can say, of course, you can make a case for Joe Louis as well, but
Oh yeah. I think you can go 1A, 1B with those guys, interchangeable in some sense.
yeah,
For me, it's Ali, but I mean, you can't really argue too much against Joe Louis. I mean, he was I
yeah.
mean, he set some marks that are going to be tough to follow.
And those
His
guys, it
openers
kind of
were the beast.
say, "Oh, Rocky Marciano, he was undefeated, so he was the best." Oh, that doesn't quite work that way,
Rocky was good. He was good, but
Yeah,
it's just there's just
yes,
certainly some differences. You know what I'm saying? Rocky
yeah,
would have
of
been
course.
it would have been some trouble with the likes of Ali, probably Lewis at a little bit younger age or whatever. But
Yeah,
it is one of those things. Shout out to Fighting Highlights. Hey, appreciate you dropping in, buddy. Without a doubt. Shout out Fighting Highlights. Go check them out. It's got a lot of content on there. Big time content there. Fighting Highlights. Definitely thanks for dropping in. He has a Van Tyson in the profile picture. You know how that goes. Let's go. And he says, "What do you think of the Conor Benn Eubank fight being canceled?" Oh yeah, we had that on the marker to have a discussion on there, Boz. Conor
yeah,
Benn versus Chris Eubank, the second coming. We had the fathers face off. As a matter of fact, I actually did a scoring on Fight Night Scores page last week, I believe it was. We scored the second fight. I had actually scored the other fight, the first fight, a day before. We're kind of looking through it. So this, in a sense, was part 3 right here in the making. We're going to have the two sons facing off. And I remember when this fight was first announced, uh, it actually seemed kind of far fetched given the divisions between the two, because Conor Benn fights at 147, and of course Chris Eubank fights pretty much 160, 168, somewhere in that range, or somewhere between those two divisions. You could He could essentially be interchangeable, but he's certainly a bigger guy than Conor Benn, and it was like it didn't seem to make sense. But of course, it always made sense. We're speaking in terms of the financial aspect when you think about the names there in the UK, and that's ultimately why it's going to be made. Now, I've shared that I thought that it was going to be tough sledding in some sense for Chris Eubank Jr. because everything seemed to be in Conor Benn's favor. It was going to be fought at 157 pounds, and I don't know how long it's been since Chris Eubank has gotten down to a weight of that range. And as of late, of course, he's been fighting bigger than that. And I thought that was going to be sort of a potential draining factor and have an effect on him here at 34 years of age. And Conor Benn was coming up, so you had that factor as well. But I would say the coming up was probably going to be a little bit better for Benn than coming down was going to be for Eubank, who's the guy who already is a ripped guy. So him dropping more weight at this particular stage was going to be interesting. But as we all may know by now, and if you haven't, it ended up being canceled. Conor Benn actually popped on some tests for an illegal substance. They always say the A sample, B sample stuff. So his A sample ended up coming back positive for a banned substance. I don't recall what that substance was at this particular point. But at the time of its announcement, actually, they're saying they were going to test the B sample. And also, he went through some other form of testing as well. I think it was VADA that he initially popped on, and he went through some other process of testing over there in the UK, and they said that he came back clean via that testing, and it looked like they were going to actually continue forward with the fight, but ultimately it was postponed, and that hype and this event that had been built up kind of went down the drain in some sense. So right now, I guess it's postponed, so it's a potential of, I guess, it happening later down the road. But taking that into account, there definitely has to be a sour taste, for many, especially considering Conor Benn, he's on a pretty high trajectory, and this type of stuff follows you in some sense. There are always going to be those who are going to bring it up and all that stuff. So what do you think of that, Bob, and the prospect of where Conor Benn goes from here with that sort of stain on his resume in a sense.
Yeah, that's definitely a stain on his resume. Yeah, I was quite shocked, to find out that, and I'm really disappointed. Of course, I kind of liked him, as a fighter anyway, and I thought, also he looked kind of, when watching him doing interviews and stuff, he was like pretty much like his dad had that same sort of charisma almost, some of it anyway. But yeah, this is just this kind of made me look at him differently. Take a different look and approach to Conor Benn, and I just I'm very disappointed at him, and of course I'm glad that this fight didn't actually happen. Also, because of, as you said, Eubank making that weight was not healthy for him. I mean,
Yeah.
having to go down to that, kind of
Yeah,
low.
and I thought, actually, if anyone would have popped on some, it would have been Eubank trying to get down to that weight, which but I thought would have been a heavy stretch for him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, he's no longer a really young guy that can do that without, really getting some sort of damage, to his body. So, and especially if he got a beating, that could have been really bad for him also.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
being
and
dehydrated and then getting a beating, that's not something you wanna do. You wanna, yeah, be exposed to. I mean, some fighters have died before because of that. I believe,
yeah.
wasn't it so that the guy who died in the Ray Mancini fight was kind of dehydrated? I
Oh
believe.
yeah,
Yeah,
Kim's last name, Duke
Duke
Young,
Ko Kim. Yeah,
Duke
something like
Young,
that.
Kim. Yeah,
That
that was
was,
one of those things, because they already go through crazy measures to get down in weight for the most part. A lot of these fighters, and Eubank, he's not a small guy. He's gonna have size in his favor and all that stuff. But certainly, man, he has to walk around well above
yeah,
what would have been sort of proper as far as knocking all of that weight off to get down to this 157-pound catch weight. So I think we're all consensus or in the consensus, those that follow it, that it was more so about the money than this actually being some true budding rivalry between the two sons. You know what I'm saying? Their fathers, of course, that worked out. They were in the same weight division and all that stuff, but there's really
yeah.
no clamoring or budding rivalry for these two
Never.
because they're kind of on two different career
Yeah,
stages and two different weight classes apart as well.
yeah. Just when I heard of it first time, I was like, "Oh no, come on! You can't be serious!" Like, one guy is a 5'8" welterweight, the other guy is 5'11" super middleweight. So,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. It just didn't seem to make any sense, but they
I
were gonna
mean,
try
their
to make it
fathers
happen.
were, yeah, we're almost the same in height. I mean, Eubank was maybe a little bit more, I mean, buff, but still,
Yeah,
it was about the same kind of physically. They were a lot more equal than those
yeah.
two. So, I mean, it's a shame that I said that they could have had Harley Ben fight to Eubank instead because he's a middleweight and he has
Oh
actually
yeah.
fought above 160 a few
Okay.
times.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
but
brother.
since he's not so good, I mean, he's got one loss already, nine wins. So I don't think they would let him fight. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That would have probably made a bit more sense. So yeah, I'm with you
yeah,
there. So as far as where we go from here, it'll be interesting. I don't know in terms of if this fight is still they're still going to try to make it. From what I had saw, at least it seemed to indicate that it was postponed, as in like it was going to potentially happen at a later time or whatever. But maybe this.
Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn is doing everything he can just to wash this off from Ben. This whatever you
Yeah,
call
yeah.
it, shame, and he's. I just it's I don't like what he's doing. He's trying to get it made still. So
Yeah, so
maybe
it'll be interesting.
he'll probably also bring this to Jeddah to Saudi Arabia because he knows he can get away
Oh yeah.
easier, down there than in UK. So
Yeah, that'll be interesting if that happens, which may be on the table, of course. It would certainly be interesting. Or if they go a completely different direction, which
yeah,
would make more sense as well. But of course, we know money talks, so that is
money.
very much some interesting stuff right there.
Yeah,
Interesting situation. So Conor Benn, let's see what he does from here, and see if there's going to be any suspension or anything that comes down. That's the key right there, I
yeah,
would say.
yeah. I mean, of course, Nigel is gonna be, standing by his son. But Eddie was like, also like, oh, don't punish Conor, man, because of this. So he's just gonna, get
Mhm.
away with this like nothing, has happened. Come on, you can't do that. Can't ask for that kind of treatment.
hmm Hey, yeah, you're spot on there, Bob. Spot on. And I saw this comment here from Brown Gal Peace Lounge. We're gonna have to pause and have a conversation here for a second. You said I never really watched Ali, believe it or not. LOL. That is pretty funny right there. Hold on 1 second right there. Brown Gal Peace Lounge. Now you're gonna go have to check out Ali ASAP.
Yeah,
As a matter of fact, go check out Muhammad Ali versus Cleveland Williams. That's always the fight I throw out there for those who haven't really seen Ali. And if you want to see pure graciousness, just pure skill, pure athleticism, pure dance, all that stuff mixed into one. You want to see him float like a butterfly and sting like a bee, go watch that Cleveland Williams fight. You need to watch that Brown Gal Peace Lounge, and you will see why Ali stood above all other heavyweights in the history of the sport.
yeah.
We appreciate you bringing that up. Always good for introducing some Ali into the mix.
I like his fights also. I mean, I think the second fight, well, of course, Frazier fights
Oh
were,
yeah,
also, gotta watch them. But I believe the second fight with Jerry Corey was also pretty good. Yeah,
oh yeah, yeah. And Ali, he had that pause, Brown Gal Peace Lounge, so couldn't fight for about 3 years, somewhere around there. And during that time, of course, he was doing a lot of activism and all that. But excuse me, when he came back, he slowed down a little bit. You could see that he wasn't quite the same mover he was prior to that layoff or whatever it may have been, where he was unable to fight. But prior to that, you'll see this was a insane version of Ali right here that you don't
yeah,
see any other heavyweight. You haven't seen in the heavyweight since then that looked like Ali, this version of Ali, and we didn't see one before that looked like this version of Ali. But then, of
yeah,
course, all of his big fights, his bigger fights, are those wars and those things that made him become this even more megastar. Were those that came about post, that layoff and everything. That Frazier fight, or all three Frazier fights, that put him on the map. The stuff with George Foreman, Rumble in the Jungle. I mean, you name it.
yeah.
He had so many other big ones out there as well. So that's the stuff. But certainly check that one out, and I think you'll want to check out other ones naturally from there.
I mean, he's practically fought almost every heavyweight of note. In
Oh
the
yeah,
'60s and '70s, like.
yeah. His resume was insane.
Yeah, I
Insane. He
mean,
was in there with some guys he probably shouldn't have been in there with, and it
yeah,
certainly didn't help him there at the tail end of his career, given the damage that he took. But he never ducked or dodged. He was in there with them all. You name a heavyweight, he was in there with them.
yeah. He also fought some European heavyweights.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
guy Carl Mildenberger, and
Mildenberger,
Henry
Henry
Cooper.
Cooper,
Yeah,
without a doubt.
yeah,
He fought them all. He fought them all. You name it.
yep,
So definitely one of the top heavyweight resumes, arguably the top heavyweight resume in the history of the sport. So
mm,
Muhammad Ali. Shout out to
like
Hyphy.
57 and South 5, 6, something like that.
56. I think it's 56-5.
Yeah.
How many knockouts did he have? I can't remember how many knockouts he had. But yeah, he was a beast. He was a beast. And those, some of those early fights in his career, he shouldn't have been in there. So
I also caught that there was until recently on Disney Plus, I believe they had it. I don't know, you could watch that program documentary about when he was fighting Holmes.
Oh, when he was training up there.
Yeah.
In that one spot. Was he at work? I forget where he was at.
Yeah, it was pretty dramatic and sad also,
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of... Yeah, he probably shouldn't have been fighting at that particular time. But
yeah, it was. But he was like very, very before the fight, was very confident that he was gonna beat Holmes, and he hadn't fought for like 2 years and so.
Yeah, his old sparring partner.
Yeah, so that's the worst thing. They were friends before that, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Larry always says he didn't want to keep beating on him like that.
Yeah, and he, after that, when he went to his corner and hugged him and said, "I love you," and Ali said, "Then why did you beat me up like that?"
Yeah, that is funny. Yeah, he was like that. That's funny. Classic Ali right there.
Yeah.
Shout out to Hyphy representing Cali, baby, listening in the background. Big up. Appreciate you, Hyphy. Yeah, been a minute. Glad to have you here, buddy. Yeah. We've been talking about the action that is taking place over the last week. We even got to dive in a little bit of Ali, some Tyson, some Lennox Lewis, some Klitschko, some Riddick Bowe. I mean, it's always good to throw in some of that. We're talking about there have been many rich heavyweight eras, and of course that 90s was a very good one as well. And we got to see a lot of big names actually do their thing, just from an overall perspective. We did also speak on Helenius Wilder, which is coming up. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of big fights this weekend here coming up.
That's good because Lord knows we haven't had so many lately.
Yeah. I guess it's worth mentioning that there are a lot of big fights. So in addition to Helenius Wilder, one I'm looking forward to is Clarissa Shields versus Savannah Marshall, as well as Michaela Mayer versus Alicia Baumgartner. So I think those are two fights where we have on both ends individuals coming in with bad blood, and I think they're gonna make it even, and I think that's gonna make for an exciting fight, because I think that these are individuals who genuinely do not like each other, and I think we're gonna see that translate into the fight in itself.
Well, that's gonna, see now it's that same card was gonna happen. It was supposed to happen in September. It's gonna happen now, in EU2. Yeah, an all-woman card. Yeah. So it should be pretty solid. I think they're gonna do their thing, and I think it's gonna live up to the hype. Hype states keep the retro boxing talk coming. I like to add that Francisco Martinez versus Chocolatito is one of the best fights that can be made in boxing. You are correct there, sir. I meant to mention that one. So Francisco Martinez, he beat Jerwin and Cajas for the second time, and this was actually a very good fight. Martinez. It was back and forth, but you could just tell that Martinez was just a step ahead. And as far as the aggression, some of the biggest stuff, it came from Martinez, and he has a crazy motor, and he's offensive and with a crazy motor, which makes it very interesting because that is similar to what Chocolatito is. He's very offensive with a crazy motor, but though Chocolatito actually has good head movement, which works on the defensive side for him. So he's actually moving in there. So it is going to be a very interesting fight if it's made. Hopefully we do get to see that Francisco Martinez versus Chocolatito, because I think it's going to deliver regardless of the situation, wherever it's at, however they put it on, it's going to deliver. Now we do know that Chocolatito is going to be taking on El Gallo Juan Francisco Estrada on December 3rd, I believe it is. It's going to be part 3 for those two who have had some good fights with each other
They've gone 1-1 with each other, and their last fight was a very good one. It was very close, and it could have gone either way. As a matter of fact, I felt that Chocolatito deserved the nod in that, but not to the degree that it's a robbery or anything of that nature. It's just a good fight, two styles that seemingly just are made for each other, similar to how Pacquiao Marquez was made for each other, stylistically. That's the same way with Chocolatito and Juan Estrada. So that third fight is going to be coming up, and it should be a banger. We'll see if we leave from this one with a definitive win for one of the fighters, and hopefully after that, we can get Francisco Martinez versus one of the two, whether that's the winner or loser. But most certainly Chocolatito would be an exciting one. And then, of course, we know that Bam Rodriguez is in the mix there as well. And I know there were discussions of getting Bam Rodriguez on this December 3rd card. So hopefully that happens as well, because I think he's a bright spot in the sport, worthy of being seen. He's a very good boxer, young fighter, was the youngest champion at one point, may still be. But yeah, he's the one to watch for sure. So hopefully we do get that. But that fight was a good one last night, and we got to see Francisco Martinez, who kind of came out of nowhere as far as the mainstream boxing world was concerned. But I think he makes a name. He's an eccentric guy. He fought with blue hair last night, and he'll continue to do so. That's like his namesake there. That's his style. So yeah, that was a good one. And then also on the 16th, which is this coming Sunday, we're going to have Devin Haney taking on Kambosos, his first name that escaped my mind. But yeah, Haney Kambosos 2 in Australia once again. And of course, this is a rematch of the championship fight there at lightweight. And at the last time around, Devin Haney put on a boxing class against George Kambosos, and he ended up winning a unanimous decision, a very clear unanimous decision at that. This time around, Kambosos seems, or he has stated that he's going to come in with more of an edge, and he feels like this is sort of one of those underdog chip on his shoulder type moments, to paraphrase. And we will see if that offers any different result for him, because last time around he didn't really get to fare very well. And if you look at conventional wisdom, I would say that it's going to be tougher this time around as well, just given that Haney will have gone 12 rounds with you in a pretty dominant fashion with no in-ring knowledge of you. And now that he's had those 12 rounds, I don't see it faring any better for Kambosos. What do you think there, boss?
Yeah, I don't know, really. I don't think Kambosos can do much better, of course, as I said before. And he's simply not a skilled enough fighter. It's not technically polished or anything, so he's he's a pressure fighter and just simply a brawler more than a boxer. So, yeah. I think it may be a little closer this time around, of course, because that this is his final chance. Kambosos, so he will be really firing up all cylinders, but still, I don't know if he can really get a decision. If he can really, win enough rounds to get a decision. Anyway.
Yeah, that certainly is going to be the question. I think he's going to need to bully and rough up Devin Haney, maybe even make it dirty. That's his best chance, of course. Otherwise, he doesn't have much of a chance, just if you look at it skill for skill.
You'll just have to fight like, very physically, as you said, dirty
and reckless. To be honest, you're gonna have to be a bit reckless, and of course, that's gonna require you to take some damage. And if he's willing to do so, that would make it a bit more interesting for him. But if he
Yeah,
chooses to be a cautious fighter as he was in that last fight, then yeah, it's
yeah. I think last time, I guess he just tried to. He didn't fight, the way he should. Simply, he boxed a little too much, maybe. So
yeah.
yeah, he will fight different this time. So who knows? Maybe if it's a really close fight, down there in Australia, he can get a decision, sometime. Maybe.
Yeah, potentially, potentially for
Yeah.
sure. And I will say that he did in his fight with Teofimo Lopez. He took some damage in that fight, but he showed some grit without a doubt, and
Oh yeah.
was able to pull that off. So if he has that same type of determination, that will make it interesting. I would say it will make it
Mm.
interesting. So we'll see if he's able to do so.
He's a very greedy fighter, definitely.
Without a doubt. So yeah, that's what's coming up this weekend, and then looking up further out, there's some other stuff that is out there. Of course, we'll get to see at some point some pretty solid matchups. We're gonna have Jojo Diaz returning, Silly Lomachenko. We're gonna have Katie Taylor back in action. We're gonna have Kaya Gucci versus Taraji, which is a super fly or light flyweight championship match is going to take place in Japan. Then we'll have Bivol versus Ramirez. Anthony Morel is going to be making a return. A lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff coming up. So I think that as we continue on over the next month or so, there are going to be some pretty solid fights to close out the year. And of course, we will be here to
Nice.
talk about and
Yeah.
discuss those.
Yeah, it's often that the best fights, especially the best fights, seem to be always made in November and December. It's like they keep them until the end of the year. Most of them.
Yep.
So
And if we're lucky, we may end up seeing Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua in December. But
yeah.
definitely don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath.
No.
But cool.
Don't expect anything, but yeah, we can only hope.
Without a doubt, the drama of boxing never seems to end. I agreed. I'm looking forward to Regis versus Cepeda. Yeah, that one is coming up. I think that's going to be a great fight. Great 140-pound competition right there when we have Regis Prograis taking on Jose Cepeda. And these are two guys who can pretty much box, punch a bit, and stylistically, yeah, I think they're going to make for a fairly action fight, just given that Regis comes forward. Zepeda, he will exchange and mix it up, but he is a counterpuncher as well. So I think that's going to make it very interesting. And that's probably going to be low key one of those potential fight of the year type candidates if all goes according to plan. But we will see. We will see for sure, but it's definitely one of note to definitely look forward to right there. Regis Prograis versus Jose Cepeda. Two guys I do like.
Yeah, I'm also really looking forward to that fight. I think it's gonna be pretty, all fireworks probably.
Oh yes, and it is good to see Regis out there. I was able to actually catch Regis live down in New Orleans.
Regis and
Kenny.
Kenny.
Yeah. He's good for the sport. Rougarou. So catching him live, and those New Orleans fans turned out for him. It was down at the Uno Arena down there in New Orleans, and he had some backing and all that stuff. And I want to see him out there more. As of late, of course, and I don't know if that's just necessarily due to promotional situation, but we haven't seen him sort of out there as much as we did. But he's definitely one of the better fighters in 140 pounds, at 140 pounds, and in the sport in general. So glad to see him back in the mix.
It seems like forever to me that I last watched him fight.
Yeah, he was on one of these. I think last time around he was on one of these Triller-like cards or something like that. One of those type of events or whatever. So, well, I know he did in a He fought this one guy. I can't think of his name, McDonald or something like that. This super tall guy.
McKenna.
Yeah, in his last fight, I can't remember what that was on, but prior to that, he was on this Triller type card or whatever.
All right, in Atlanta maybe.
Yeah, he fought Ivan Redkach, who
Yeah, that's right. I'm looking at.
Redkach tried to cheat his way into a victory by acting like he was hit lower or something crazy like that, and he embarrassed himself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's just hype. He was hype, but when I remember Zlatican really exposed him. I remember, I think he stopped him in 4 rounds, something.
Yeah.
Day on.
Yeah, hopefully we don't see him on TV anymore with that.
Yeah. Bad excuse for a top fighter.
Insane. Insane. But yeah, man, so we're at an hour 20, which I think isn't bad. Not bad overall,
Not bad.
Appreciate everyone jumping in, this is not bad, we'll try to bring more coming in the coming weeks as we move ahead. Maybe add in a show, knock on wood.
Yeah.
We'll see if that's something that's a possibility.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see. We have to factor in the time difference and everything, but
yeah,
so Boz is holding it down over there. It's night there, day here, and it is what it is. But yeah, it's always great to have these discussions. So of course, this is Boxing's Chit. We appreciate everyone dropping in. Hyphy. Be sure to check out Hyphy. Brown Gal Peace Lounge. Be sure to check her out. Give her a follow. Fighting Highlights. Same thing. A lot of content out there. Rodolfo Rivera. Salute to you, my friend Rodolfo, and everyone else who tuned in or joined or will be watching this stream in the aftermath. But we do appreciate every single one of you, and we do thank you for actually dropping in and all that stuff. And we're looking forward to what you may be presenting content-wise as well. Brown Gal Peace Lounge, you being one of them. So going to be checking you out without a doubt. So thank you definitely to all of you, and hopefully we'll catch you on the next one.
Yes, I'll catch you then.
Cheers all.
Cheers.